Hello. This video is for Stat 210 and includes a discussion of the data preparation for the Terry stop data. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. So on the course website, there is a link that will take you to the Seattle Open Data site, and the link provided will take you to the Terry stops. To get a copy of this data, we're going to select Export up here in the upper right-hand corner, and we want to grab this CSV file. So select CSV, and what that'll do is download a copy of the Terry stop data onto your computer. We will now open up Jump, select Open, and then you need to go to the location of that data file. Now, you might have to change the file types down here to all files. And then the other thing that you want to make sure and do is deselect the Use Default Program to open. We want this to open not in Excel, but inside a Jump. So we want to make sure that that box has been deselected. Go ahead and say Open. And that will open a copy of the data file for us. We can see that there are 23 different columns in this data. And down here I have about 53,500 or so rows in this data. Each row represents a Terry stop, so a stop made by an officer. There are some of the variables here that we're going to want to pay attention to are the officer gender and also the subject perceived gender. So that column there and the officer gender. I am going to do some matching here. So before doing that though, I need to make the genders look similar between the two columns. So you can see here that an M is being used for a male officer, but on the subject perceived gender, male is written out there. So the first thing I'm going to do is just get the subject perceived gender, males and females. I'm not going to worry about these unable to determine or these missingness here that we see. So the first things first, let's subset out just the males and females for subject perceived gender. The easiest way to do that is going to be select Analyze, Distribution. I want subject perceived gender here. And then I want to just select the males. So that's going to select the male rows. Okay, where the subject perceived is male. You can see. If I hold down the Shift button, I can also get the females. So now the female rows are being selected as well. Once I have those highlighted, okay, then I can go underneath Tables, Subset, and I want Selected Rows specified. And we can go ahead and keep all columns down here as well. Say OK, and what that's going to do is rip out just the rows where the subject perceived gender is either male or female. So now I have just the male-female here. The next step then is to change the males to an M and the females to an F so that it matches the officer genders. So not written out male and female, but just M's and F's because that's what I have over here. So to do that, I'm going to select the subject perceived gender column. Underneath columns, I'm going to select a Recode. And here, you can either create a new column or you can do what's called in-place recoding, which that is just going to simply replace the male with an M, if that's what I specify, and any females with an F. Okay, so females are now going to become Fs, males are going to become Ms in this column because I've specified in place here. So when I say Recode, hopefully that's what happens. And it does all the way down there for me. Okay, now I want to create a new column that just checks to see if the officer's gender matches the subject's perceived gender. So we're going to create a new column. Let's go ahead and select subject perceived gender here. Underneath columns, I'm going to say new column. I want to give it a name, which is going to be does gender match. Okay, so that creates a new column for me. And then I want to do an if statement here. Okay, so to do a right click, say formula. And here I want to do a conditional or an if statement. We did those in class one day. So that's conditional and then if. And then what I want to do, right, is check the gender of the officer to see if that equals, okay, so press the equal button, the subject perceived gender. If it does, then I want to label that as a yes, the gender does match. And if they're not equal to one another, I want to label that as a no, they do not match. So let's go ahead and apply this, and just check to see what's going on here before I exit this window. So we can get all this on the screen now at once. So here for this first, I have officer gender is male, subject perceived gender is male, so that's a yes. Here is the officer is a male, subject perceived gender is a female, so that's a no. So that looks like that's doing well. That's doing what I want. Okay, so we can get out of here. Now I have this does gender match variable. What I want to do next is do some, just see how that variable relates to the frisk flag. So that is whether or not somebody was patted down on their stop, or even were they arrested. There's an arrest flag as well. So on this quiz, you'll be working with both the frisk flag and the arrest flag. So let's go ahead and do some summaries there with that. I'm going to select Analyze, Fit Y by X. Let's do frisk flag here. And then I'm going to do does gender match as my X factor variable. Let's go ahead and bring this over. Now we do see that I have in my table, well, I got my graph, and then I got my table, and then I got my testing stuff. In the table, right, we want to just work with our row percentages. The other thing that I see here is that I do have some missingness on my frisk flag. So I can exclude those if I want. So to do that, I'm going to select from my filter. I want to filter on the frisk flag. And I only want the no and the yeses there. So now you can see that my table is reduced. It got rid of those, how many missing was there? 420 out of the 53,000 or so. So not very much is missing there. But if you want to exclude those, all you need to do is just specify local data filter and then just not select that missing outcomes. So this is the graph that looks like what we've been doing in class. We can say cell labeling there, get the percents, you can change the colors, you can do what you want there. The other thing that I want you to do here is to make some comparisons in this pattern or this relationship over time. Okay, I do have a time variable, so let's just get this out of the way a minute. I do have a time variable here, reported date. This reported date is actually a string, okay? It looks like a date, but it has this T and Z in there, so JMP is actually treating this as a string. So there are some functions that work great on strings. One of them is called the left function, which is going to pull just so many characters off of a string from the left side. So notice that the date is always the first 4 characters here. Doesn't matter the year, the date is always, the year is always the first 4 characters. So I'm going to do a string function, okay, or use a string function. I'm going to use the left string function and pull off the first 4 characters from that string. So let's do that. We're going to create a new column. So columns, new column. I'm going to call this year. And then what I want to do here is go under formula, and I want to do a string function, which is a character function, and I want left, which might be just below the screen there, but the name of that function is left. You want to take the left of what string? Well, the reported date. And again, I want the first 4 characters. So N here is going to be 4. Let's go ahead and apply that. And you can see that that is indeed ripping off the first 4 characters of this string, which is my year variable. Okay, that looks like it's working good. Now let me go back to my graph, and I can do a second filter on my year variable now. And now I can select information from 2015, 16, 19, kind of like what we were doing in class the other day. So I was working with the frisk flag here. Again, some of the questions are going to ask about the arrest flag. So not just whether or not they were patted down, but were they actually arrested? And again, most of that is going to be done across the gender matching variable that you created. Okay, that does it then for our Terry Stop data preparation. Good luck on the quiz. Have a good day.